Imagine a man who, on the surface, seemed to be a pillar of the community, a charitable clown at children's parties. Now imagine that beneath this facade lurked a monstrous serial killer. This is the paradox of John Wayne Gacy, better known as the Killer Clown. A man whose horrifying crimes sent a chilling ripple through the heart of America in the 1970s. A man who buried the bodies of 29 young victims in or near his own house, while the remains of 4 others were discovered in the nearby Des Plaines River. This is the chilling tale of John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy's story begins with a troubled childhood, marred by an abusive father and experiences of molestation. Born in Chicago, Gacy's early life was a tumultuous one. His father was a harsh disciplinarian, often resorting to physical and verbal abuse. Young Gacy endured this torment, yearning for his father's approval, an approval that was rarely forthcoming. In addition to the abuse at home, Gacy also grappled with experiences of molestation outside his family. These painful encounters further complicated his formative years, casting a shadow over his developing identity. Gacy's childhood was also marked by his early encounters with the law. As a teenager, he committed minor offenses, hinting at a budding disregard for societal norms. Yet it was his struggle with his sexuality that proved to be a significant part of his early life. Caught in a time and place where homosexuality was far from accepted, Gacy was forced to suppress his true identity, leading to a life of duplicity. These early experiences, a cocktail of abuse, molestation, encounters with the law, and a struggle with his sexuality, all contributed to the makings of a future serial killer. Yet it's essential to remember that these factors do not justify Gacy's heinous actions. They merely provide some insight into his troubled psyche. While his past was troubled, no one could have predicted the horrific path Gacy would tread. In his adult years, Gacy was well received in his community, a seemingly upstanding citizen who even entertained as a clown at children's parties. These jovial performances, however, were a deceptive facade, a chilling contrast to the darkness that lay beneath. John Wayne Gacy, the man behind the clown makeup, was living a double life. On the surface, he was a community stalwart, a friend, a neighbor, a man who brought laughter to children's faces. Offstage, he was a predator, a man who harbored a dark, insidious secret. His reputation served as a cunning disguise. He was trusted, liked, and respected. This respectability allowed him to approach his victims with ease. Many were young boys and men lured with the promise of work or simply swayed by Gacy's friendly, approachable demeanor. It was a clever ruse, one that allowed him to carry out his heinous crimes unnoticed for years. His dual existence was a masterclass in manipulation. He used his status to create opportunities, to gain trust, and to hide in plain sight. His victims saw the community figure, the clown, the friendly face, not the monster that lurked beneath. As he entertained children with magic tricks and balloon animals, nobody could have imagined the unspeakable horrors he was capable of. An ordinary man with an extraordinary secret, Gacy was a wolf in clown's clothing, a predator hiding behind a mask of respectability and laughter. But behind the clown makeup and friendly demeanor, a predator was lurking. It was in his Norwood Park home where Gacy's monstrous side truly emerged. Here, behind closed doors, the seemingly affable community man revealed his true, terrifying nature. Gacy had a method, a sickening routine that he followed to ensnare his victims. He'd lure unsuspecting young men and boys with the promise of work. He'd offer them jobs, painting a picture of opportunity and prosperity. Little did they know they were walking right into the jaws of a predator. Once they were within his grasp, Gacy would unleash his horrific acts. He sexually assaulted them, tortured them, and eventually ended their lives. Each victim was subjected to unimaginable brutality, their final moments filled with fear and pain. Most chilling of all was Gacy's method of disposing of his victims. He would often strangle them, then stash their bodies in his closet, a macabre trophy room of his heinous deeds. He'd keep them there for a time, before finally burying them. He'd pour lime or acid over the corpses, a grisly ritual before interring them in their final resting place. The majority of these victims ended up beneath his house, in a crawl space that held the secrets of his gruesome crimes. The discovery of these bodies sent shockwaves through the community and the nation. Underneath the house of a man who had once performed as a clown at children's parties, investigators found the remains of 29 victims. 4 more were discovered in the nearby Des Plaines River, their lives brutally cut short by the man they'd trusted enough to enter his home. Gacy's home, once seen as a place of joy and laughter, had become a house of horrors. The echoes of his crimes still reverberate today, reminding us of the darkness that can lurk beneath the most ordinary of exteriors. In 1980, the world watched in horror as the true extent of Gacy's crimes came to light. The trial of John Wayne Gacy was a spectacle that gripped not just the nation but the world. His plea of insanity, a desperate attempt to evade the consequences of his monstrous acts, was rejected outright by the jury, who instead diagnosed him as schizophrenic. The evidence was overwhelming. The bodies of 29 victims were found in or near Gacy's house, while 4 others were discovered in the nearby Des Plaines River. Gacy's own confession, initially admitting to the crimes, was damning. Despite his later attempts to claim innocence, suggesting others had access to his house and could have buried the bodies, the jury was not swayed. In the end, justice was served. Gacy was found guilty of all 33 murders. The man who had once brought joy to children's parties as a clown, who had been well-liked in his community, was sentenced to 21 terms of life in prison and death for the murders. He was executed by lethal injection in 1994. Yet even after his death, Gacy's shadow looms large. Recent developments have brought his crimes back into the spotlight. In 2021, the Cook County Sheriff's Office announced the identification of Francis Wayne Alexander as one of Gacy's victims. His body was discovered in the crawl space of Gacy's home over 40 years ago. The identification was made possible with the help of the non-profit organization DNA Doe Project. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown, remains one of the most notorious serial killers in American history, a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk beneath the most ordinary of facades. His legacy is a stark reminder of humanity's capacity for darkness, a lesson we must never forget.